This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. Avoid the Maze, life. That's exactly what it is. And you know what? We can't really avoid it, but we can learn how to get through it and look at those obstacles as challenges that take us to the next step. I met my guest through Podmatch. Her name is Elona Lopari. Did I get that right?
You got it.
Wow. Normally I don't. And she's the CEO of the Life School. And when I read your bio, I was so impressed that here you are, you came to the United States looking for that pot of gold, like so many people have come to the United States and realized maybe it's not the pot of gold itself, maybe it's the riches that we find in life. And I think that's what I saw in your bio, that it's more than just the financial. So give me a little bit of background of where you came from and what was your inspiration?
Yeah, Karen, thank you so much for having me here. I love the theme of the podcast, Avoid the Maze, because yes, life sometimes can seem like a maze where, we don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And at certain phases and stages of our life experience, I've also learned that it's helpful to lean on other people and lean on some of the things that we can learn from others so that we can get through to the next phase. And that's actually, my origin story. I moved here in the US when I was only 15, was the oldest child. My parents struggle, no language, no connections, a lot of lack around, finances, moved a lot. Those things that actually helped me grow up very fast at an early age, because I had to get my first couple of jobs and then start to contribute to the family. So I really became a very early problem solver where I had to pretty much grow up and enroll my siblings in school and all of this. So I became like a little adult very fast, which now I see in foresight that really helped me in my own journey and in the work that I do today. And then after that, I was obviously nurtured with the American dream from my dad, especially go to college, get a good degree, get a good job, safety, marriage, and pretty much live happily ever after. And I did that for many years, 13 years. I climbed the corporate ladder all the way to the C-suite until I realized, wait, I don't feel like this. I'm happy. This is not really, what I thought the American dream would feel like. And there was also other circumstances around me at that time that kind of were pulling me to do a new direction, something else, because I no longer saw a future with the company I worked with. It was a very profit-driven culture it turned into. And I no longer saw I was a number. So that's kind of where entrepreneurship showed up for me. And I said, well, let me try this out. I don't have any other entrepreneurs in my family. I never thought this would be something that I would ever be on a journey to discovery and to building my own thing. But once I kind of got started at those early stages, I realized that, oh my gosh, I love the journey, because if nothing else, the growth in entrepreneurship is like amazing. And every day you're learning and growing. And especially when you do work you love, and I get to choose the work that I love and with the people that I want to do it with, it gives you that sense of fulfillment that I was actually missing from where I was working before. So long story short, now I love to help other people pretty much do what I did, put purpose first, but then really align the profit piece based on my long experience in leadership and business acumen and business scaling and growth. Because I really believe that when we flip the equation from kind of what we've been taught how to grow traditional businesses on the other side, profits are also now a byproduct. It's much like personal life. When we go for material things, we realize that that's not really going to fulfill us. But when we actually find joy in the process and transformation, and we're in service to others and all of that, and we create impact, it seems like the other piece of the equation, the material abundance that we're looking for, somehow is always available to us. So I kind of just use the same framework for companies to help them scale.
It surprises me that big business hasn't picked up on this, because many people would still work in that environment if they were able to do what they are very good at, what their purpose is, to be creative, we could all make money for our companies. But the sad part is, we push people down when it comes to big business. And I saw it for myself. I worked for a profit college, loved what I did. I helped so many students who probably would have never gone to college find their place. But I will tell you that a lot of them didn't go to the college where I was working because I helped them see what other opportunities were out there. And I felt I was doing a better service for the school that I was working for because I wasn't placing people just to place them. And when they would say to me, "You're so much better than this," I'd say, "Yes, I am. And I'm proving it to you because you're not losing money on these students. These students are better off going somewhere else, following a different path. If we have the right path, I'm going to help them. But if I don't have the right path, why am I going to tell somebody that they should be a nursing student when they don't like the sight of blood?" I mean, just doesn't make sense. So now that you're helping individuals, are these individuals taking it to a higher standard, that meaning not just for personal business, but taking it into corporations and taking some of these practices there?
Yeah, I like what you touched on, Karen, with why do bigger companies obviously have a harder time to kind of just adapt to new ways of doing culture, new ways of working, new ways of kind of operating, in a nutshell. And again, it's because, again, the bigger you are, the slower you get to move, and status quo is a problem. So, but it's coming to come. I am very pleased with kind of what I see also in the bigger companies that I help, which is 1 to 10 million, that they're actually, the leaders are more conscious. They're making different decisions. They're understanding, how culture works. They're understanding they want to meet the needs personally for their teams and for their communities and for their clients. And it's no longer just professional business results, strategy, those like cold forms of kind of how business has been done before. But much like you, Karen, even in my experience in the HR role for many years with the company I worked for, it's really just having a very pure intention to serve and just being there for someone else and having someone else's best interest. And offering, something of value. If you have that clear intention and you don't have a hidden agenda, that is not necessarily going to be the best thing for the other person on the other side. I think like it, in a nutshell, that's really what it always comes down to. And when you have that energy, then obviously that translates and people can feel that, even though sometimes they can't articulate it, but people can feel your energy when you have clear intentions and you're really there to help and serve and listen attentively for sort of what are the needs, what are the goals and the things that they're looking for. So I today work with entrepreneurs, seasoned entrepreneurs and CEOs, if they're obviously in those seasoned companies at those revenue levels, but I always work with the individual, right? I mean, behind every company, there's people. So
Right.
that's what I love, based on the work I do, because whether it's the done, with you, and I kind of walk them through the processes to be able to help them scale operationally, whether it's their branding or their messaging or the different business model to scale or the marketing channels or the sales processes or all these different things that are naturally happen in a company so that it's self-sufficient and it operates without its owner so that it can leave a positive legacy and create more impact. Or whether, I'm training the teams or done for you services back to kind of, what back to the time of the CEO, because it's usually two different problems. When you are at the beginning stages of your company growth, you have more time. However, as you scale, you don't have time. So now you're looking to buy back a lot of your time and you're looking to now grow with systems and team and have people come in and actually operationally do some of those projects that you might be involved in. So at different phases and stages, I've obviously seen different needs, but at the end of the day, it's the human behind what we do. That's why I love personal development work, inner work, because I really feel like, again, unless you raise your consciousness as a leader, unless you understand, these new ways of working, and there's so much more to leadership as well than kind of what we traditionally were taught, you're just a better person overall, and you're going to enjoy your time in your company, anyway. You're going to build something that you find meaningful, and as a result, everything else will become a byproduct of that. And again, energy is infectious, but it all starts with us, because that's all we can control, the things that we do and the decisions that we make, and the way that we're always learning, and really don't lead out of ego or operate under ego, because I think that's another thing that's a big pain point for especially
It certainly is.
the
Yep.
male skills.
And, it's interesting. I grew up in the 50s and 60s, and it was assumed back in that generation that by the time you're 20 years old or so, you have personally developed. This is who you're going to be. You've gone to college, or you've gone to trade school, or you've had a job, and you sort of now are, I'm not going to say on the way down, but you've reached what everybody thinks is your peak. And the reality of it is, I kept asking myself for many years, there's got to be more. And I kept looking for more. And I remember one day my mother said to me, "What are you looking for?" I said, "When I find it, I'll let you know, but I'm going to keep looking. I'm going to keep searching. I'm not content to just say, this is all there is." And I didn't mean that I was going to throw everything away, but I wanted to develop myself. And that was not a word that was even used in the 70s or 80s. It was like, who would have thought that? If you went to get self-help, you went to a psychiatrist, and what did they say? Oh, it's your mother's fault or your father's fault that you're the way they are. What is it different now in the 21st century that we're finally saying, hey, self-development is really important, and it doesn't make any difference what my age is. I can keep learning and I can keep doing.
Yeah, I love you mentioned that, because I'm also 80s baby, 84. Yeah, I also thought for many years, because I think the change is definitely information, right? Education's always been how, humans developed. Through understanding concepts, understanding how our life works, understanding how we work, understanding how our feelings work, like all these things that traditionally, again, in school were not things that, we were even taught, or, forget about companies, because obviously
Right.
if you don't start very early on, then, the people become the product that works inside companies, and you're, a citizen that you walk outside, in a community, and you're contributing member to society overall. So it all kind of connects together. But I think the biggest change is absolutely information and awareness. Now we have more information to explain a lot of those things than maybe even my parents couldn't explain, right? What were some of the things that they were going through? Unless you understand sort of what you're going through, then you're just going to feel alone, and you're just going to accept that it is what it is. And that's kind of what was in the prior generations, that you just really had role models. Your world was, very small. You lived in small communities, and you only can learn from the people around you. But now that obviously, with the internet and technology advancing, pretty much can learn from people virtually anywhere in the world. And yes, there is side effects to that as well. I don't think anything in life, I believe in the law of polarity, right? There's always the, two sides of everything. And that's the smart thing in life, to be able to leverage, the positive, and then try to manage the side effects. But I think that's what it is. Information, education is out there. People have more, also different role models to go by. And then just by more of that exposure, you kind of see different things. And then you try to find your own way, so to speak, and go more into self-discovery. I've learned that that's actually the most important thing that we can do to discover ourselves. And there's no such thing as I already know who I am, because every day you're learning and growing. And that's actually where I founded my company, which is called the Life School, because that's what it is. Life is like a school, and it's always teaching us. Our experience is teaching us, other people's experience is always teaching us something new. And we're always a life student if you like to be one. And every day is like a classroom, right? You can learn.
Absolutely.
Like to. So yeah.
And it's interesting because I guess a couple years before my mother passed away, I was at her house, and I brought my computer because I had a podcast to do. And I said, I'm going to go in the other room and I'm going to do this podcast. And she said, what is it? I keep hearing this word. I don't understand it. And so I explained it to her, and she said, oh, you're finally on the radio. You wanted to do that a long time ago. And I just went along with it and said, yeah. And I did the podcast. And when I posted it, I said, would you like to hear it? And she goes, oh, absolutely. And I was talking to a woman about my mother's age, and my mother was probably early 90s at the time. And we were talking about that you still have life to live as long as you are breathing. You get to choose the life. And this woman, she was writing a book, she had been painting, she kept recreating herself just about every year because she wanted to do one more thing. And my mother's listening to this, and she goes, could I go back to school and become a teacher? And I said, you could? I said, in fact, she lived in the state of Michigan. I said, in the state of Michigan, because of your age, it's not going to cost you anything to go get your degree. Would you like to do that? And she thought about it for a while. And it was very exciting for her to think about it. But then when she realized that she was going to have to study and be on the computer, she finally said she didn't want to do it. But her eyes opened so wide that, there are things I still can do. And there were many things that she couldn't do that she used to do. And so we sort of helped her adapt. Okay, Mom, you can't use your sewing machine anymore, but you know what? You can still crochet. And so she started crocheting again. Those are the things that people have to start to embrace, that we never reach our peak because there's always one more mountain that we can climb. And I think that's some of the things that you're explaining to your clientele, that, don't accept where you are today if that's not where you want to be, because you're probably not going to want to be there tomorrow. You're going to want to be someplace else.
Yeah, absolutely. Your mom's story is so inspirational. And that's the thing that happens when, we have more information, because I really feel like, again, new role modeling, new insight, new inspired action, new ways of thinking. We all see ourselves in our life, wherever we are, whatever phase and stage of life, we see ourselves in other people. So if we get inspired by different models or things that other people are saying, I always say it's connected to a purpose, because there's a reason why it's attracting you and not me, for example, right? Because we all have that individual path that we go on. So I think it's amazing. Yeah, we have a limited amount of gifts inside of us, and every day we learn new things. And the more we learn new things, the more we can apply those things towards service towards other people, right? Because we are now, I believe, in a skills economy, right? Everything is a skill. So the more you understand yourself, the more you can practice and become good at those things that you really can utilize for yourself and then others. That's kind of how, that's how I see the definition of a contributing member into society that does more good in the world, that creates, that innovates, all these things that we have probably admired on people, from role models that we have all followed, as a society. So yeah, it's life is absolutely a journey every day. It's a process of you become someone, and then rather than focusing more on the the things that we get, I've also learned to focus more on who am I becoming. And do I like this version of myself? And the process of evolution, there's no such thing as stopping, because when I reach a certain point, my soul is always going to thrive or pull me towards, you know, the next level of growth, because we usually either continuously improve or we kind of deteriorate, unfortunately, as human beings. So which route are you going to take? I've chosen growth forever. So just let's make that a personal value. And I also made that a company value. And I just know that, you know, the only thing that's going to be for sure is always growth and continuous improvement. And at the end of the day, that's all we could do as humans.
Exactly. So we live in this very competitive world, okay? And I know as a coach, I really try to stress, don't try to be better than somebody else. Be a better version of yourself each day. Don't compare yourself that somebody else can, you know, ski down a mountain and you're fearful of skiing down it. Okay, what can you do? How do we get people to stop some of the, I think, very destructive competitiveness that we see? Because that was my biggest downfall growing up. I felt like I had to be like other people, and if I wasn't good enough. And I could keep telling myself I wasn't. And truthfully, it wasn't until I met my husband, and we've been married 40 years, and I still don't always believe him when he says it, but almost from day one, he would say to me, "You're very good." Whatever it was, you know, and it could be something very trivial, like, "Oh, you're very good at taking out the trash," or "You're very good at doing a podcast," or "You're a very good writer." There's when I hear it, it's like, why didn't I ever believe it before? And now I believe it. And I will even say to him, you know, I'm very good at whatever it is. So how do we get people to, you know, sort of change that mindset? Because competition's never going to really go away.
Karen, I really think that's actually the work. That
Yeah,
is our life's work. To just know that we're actually good enough no matter what we achieve, no matter what we do, no matter any of the outside circumstances, no matter who we compare ourselves to. And much like you, I also, obviously, that's been my hardest work, inner work, that I've also have had to do. And for me, it was achievement. It showed up for me as that. I thought that, you know, for the longest, I had to achieve. Back to my origin story too, because I was the value of my family, right? I always got praised for, okay, Alona's going to fix it. She's going to figure out a way. Come, she's going to save us. She's going to, you know, take care of the bills. She's going to do this and that, right? So I just early on got those mixed messages around, okay, well, in order for me to feel loved or get love from the people I love, I need to always be doing something for them and achieve. So that's kind of how that translated for me. But I think back to kind of what my own journey has been. I think we're all human. Self-awareness is honestly the only thing that we have at hand when we are falling into that trap of comparison, which is so easy today, because again, just like we have access to amazing role models and people we can admire and that can inspire us to take inspired action for our own self and life. I think obviously the other is also available, where there's always somebody further along the journey that has the thing that we want, and is living the life that maybe we think is the life that we want as well. So that's always going to be available, and we're going to be human. I mean, at the end of the day, I also have days when I fall into that and I'm almost like on autopilot and subconscious, but then I'm like, oops, what are we doing? So let's go back now here and kind of just work on that and work on those stories or things that we're telling ourselves. And that's why I say that's the work, because sometimes we can't catch ourselves and we just fall into that trap. But awareness, you know, just kind of go back to yourself and focus on your own journey. Affirmations have helped me a lot. You know, what matters is your own individual path. And I love to, because I'm a Cancer by my horoscope. So I like to go to my past and be like, wait, look how far you've come. All those things that you thought were impossible, you've actually, achieved a lot of those things and you've been through those points. So just focus on that, focus on your past journey, focus on the present to take action, and then focus on the purpose and the vision that you have for the future. And sometimes it's almost like I have to come out of my day-to-day, stuff that we all get involved in, and kind of just remember the bigger purpose of why I'm doing what I'm doing, why is it important, and just those affirmations around I am enough. I don't need to do something or whatever, works for everybody based on kind of what some of our blocks are or where we feel the most lack, I should say. So yeah, I think it's a discipline, it's a process, and there's going to be better days than others. But I think awareness is the only thing that we can control as humans. Try to catch ourselves when we're doing it, and go back into our own core and feel the gratitude for the journey thus far.
And I appreciate your honesty there, because I've talked to a number of coaches who, I don't know if it's just their delivery or what. And so I don't see a delivery. I see a very honest Elona sitting across from me. But I will often hear other coaches say, oh, it's easy to stay aware. It's easy. And it's like, no, it's not, because there are things during the day that come up. I have a son who lives 1,000 miles away. He's doing extremely well on his own, but he calls me every day just to check in. But some days when he calls in, it's complaining about something. And because I have no control and I don't want to tell him how to live his life, I sit and I hold it in. And I will tell you that as soon as I get off the phone, I feel my day sliding downhill. And if I don't catch myself, I'm not as good as I should be for that day. And I will finally figure it out during the day and go, okay, what are the tools that I have? What do I need to do to get back up and start climbing again? And I don't expect every day to be a perfect day, but I expect that I know where my tools are and I know how to use them. And typically I know when to. And it sounds like that's what you were saying too, that nothing's going to be perfect, but you got to catch yourself.
Yeah, there's no such thing as perfection. And even though when you think like, there's been moments where I'm like, okay, I got it. I figured it out. I have clarity. I've done the work, okay, nothing will touch me now. Nothing will affect me. And that's not true. And I honestly have realized that that's not even our human experience. 50% of our days are going to be kind of what you talked about, right? And we're going to get affected by outside circumstances that are going to cause that. But again, I try to always go into my body and into my heart and be like, okay, what's the story I'm telling myself, right? So kind of just try to always catch the story, because obviously what we think causes our feelings as well. So try to catch that and sit with uncomfortable feelings. Honestly, Karen, that's been the hardest lesson or exercise of my life, to just freaking feel my negative feelings and realize that, oh, they're just feelings. They just take like about 5 seconds.
Yep.
And they'll just like go away. I'm like, oh, because before I would just shove them away, distract myself, all the things, so that I never had to feel an uncomfortable feeling, or I would minimize a lot of things. But now that's kind of been the work, to kind of just sit with it and be like, okay, of course I'm feeling this way, and just give myself empathy. Because we do it so well, you for your son, me for my mom, or whoever else. By the way, that's adorable. Because I also call my mom every day, and if I don't, she's like, oh, you forgot to call me today. It's like that we have together. I think relationships are really important, human relationships, absolutely, for sure. But yeah, I think it's kind of, what it is, kind of feel your feelings through and to the end, and don't be afraid. Nothing will happen. We'll come through them. It's just like sometimes I visualize, the ocean. It's like, the waves. So I'm like, okay, it's just coming. It's gonna get through. I'm gonna get through it on the other end. And then where I realized how to do that process, I'm like, oh, I'm not afraid of anything anymore. Because at the end of the day, what is it? We can always problem solve things. There's always things happen because of a better reason in retrospect. So but when it comes to that survival brain in the moment, I'm like, okay, I'll just nothing, that's it. It was just a
Yeah.
feeling. I'm still alive. I didn't die. Oh my God, it's not that bad. So just learn how to navigate. It's all honestly, feelings are the most important thing. I wish they would have taught that to us very early on, because everything is a feeling. We want to, do the things we do because of, we want to feel happy, all the different feelings, right? So it's such an important piece, but they are so important to be able to learn how to navigate and manage them, because they can either block us or they can put us in those states where we are in comparison and we never feel good enough, and we can idle and stall and procrastinate and all these human things that most people talk about, because
Yep,
these are the that hold us back.
exactly. So how can our listeners find you, and what is your typical client like? I mean, are you only working with large corporations? Are you working with the individual who's just getting started and says, I have I have a dream and this is what I want to do?
I love that, because I was there, and I have so much respect for the early starters in business, because I find that that's honestly the hardest moment. But I work with both individuals, anyone that's under $1 million in their profit side. They already understand they're in the service space, they're entrepreneurs, and they're offering a service, whether it's hybrid, online, or local business, and they're under $1 million. We have a program for that where we help them kind of with all those right problem solving abilities to generate cash flow, which is usually the problem at that level. And then if they're 1 to 10 million, still in the service space, then we help them scale with their business models, with the right systems, with the right teams in place. Yeah, we have an accelerator for someone in that phase. And usually the problem there is scaling. They reached maximum capacity. The time of the people, or maybe even the CEO, is at, maximum capacity. So obviously we need to implement other things to help them scale at the next level. So those are usually the two individuals that we could support at the highest level.
Well, and we need more people like you out there. We need more people to know there are individuals like you out there, because too many of us get stuck, and we, like I said before, we think we're just not good enough or we can't do it. And oftentimes the reality is, if we had the right guidance, we could do exactly what it is that we want to do. But maybe in a better way, because sometimes our brains don't think that way. I know when I first started podcasting almost 13 years ago, it looks nothing like what I'm doing today. I had to keep looking around and listening and feeling and asking the questions. And even today, I made a few changes, because I looked at something and I said, that's getting a little dull and boring. I have to look at it again. And I sat there for a little over an hour and I was like, oh, I see what the problem is. And again, I might look at it 6 months from now and realize that it needs tweaking again. But it's businesses like yours that have taught me that, you know what, you got to keep an open mind. You got to be aware of what's going on around you.
Yeah, Karen, likewise. I mean, I think the work you're doing is absolutely amazing as well, because anyone that has pure intentions and is always trying to be in service towards others, whether, we do that through a podcast or a program or something else that we have created, a book or anything else, I think at the end of the day, that's the intention. It's always going to come through. But yeah, it goes back to say, to kind of back to what we're talking about, the process of evolution. All we can do is continuously improve our podcast, continuously improve our business model, continuously improve our service, continuously improve our marketing, continuously improve, our mindset, all these things, right? So, and the gift that I have seen is my own authentic thing, is really connecting those dots for people, because is again back to what you were saying, and anyone chooses an area in life that obviously they have that talent, ability, and skill. But it's amazing how someone else can just sit back in front of you and be like, here's the most important dots that need to get connected. But meanwhile, for us, it's so hard to be able to do that for ourselves because again, we have a lot of our own subconscious bias, emotions. Sometimes we lack the information. We don't know what we don't know. And we haven't puzzle pieced a lot of those different things in our journey, especially if you're trying to go somewhere where we lack experience. That's why I value the industry of coaching, consulting, because again, if someone else can help us with the transformation, save us time, create leverage, better relationships, wealth, health, all those important areas in our lives. I think it's just an amazing thing to be able to invest in ourselves and go further faster. Because now that I'm reaching 40, I'm in the fourth decade, I'm realizing how time is it's like the most important commodity that we have, and it's the only resource that is scarce. So if we can condense time and work smart and not hard and align ourselves with the right people, honestly, that's what I'm realizing is the most important thing that we can do. At least back to my own reflective experience thus far.
So how can my listeners find you? We're going to put your information in the show notes, but give us a little taste where they can find you.
Yeah, speaking of podcasts, I also love podcasts, and I have our podcast as well. And it's much like this, a very open conversation. I call it the Life School Masterclass show because I find that every conversation, it's like its own masterclass when people come and share their experience, whether again, it's their personal experience or professional. I don't think we can detach, or we shouldn't at least, because we are a whole, individual. So they can go to my website, Elona Lopari Coaching, and they'll find the podcast there, and also a lot of other resources that I put together where wherever they are in the journey of aligning their purpose with profit, they'll find something valuable where they can maybe just at least get some awareness around the next gaps that they might be experiencing in those two areas so they can get to the next level. So I would say, yeah, the website would be the best next step.
We'll put that out there, and we hope that our listeners will follow you on your podcast. And if they can use your services, to contact you, because, we're all in this together. And if we can help each other out, that's just amazing to me. We belong in a community where we help each other. Thank you so much, Elona, and I will talk to you again soon. Take care now. Bye-bye.